Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Presidential politics, much in the minds of the Republican Party. New polls today showing that Herman Cain, a man who has never held elective office, who has run for office once before, to my knowledge, for the Senate in Georgia, is now in the commanding lead of the Republican nomination contest for president. Herman Cain, whose 999 program, which Michelle Bachmann impishly called the 666 program, dominated the conversation at Dartmouth College within these hours. That is the presidential contest in the United States. However, there's another presidential contest that is critical for the 21st century, critical to the way we will work together or not with China, the People's Republic of China, a dominant player in the 21st century. That is the presidential contest on Taiwan, an independent, capitalist democracy, a place where people very carefully present their opinion of the mainland, of China, chiefly because China threatens Taiwan routinely. When I was there in the 2004 election, it was commonplace for people to be reminded that there were 700 missiles pointed at Taipei. Now I think there are many more. In addition, the leaders of the PLA speak casually of conquering Taiwan, of occupying Taiwan, of grabbing Taiwan back to what they call its homeland, the mainland. What do the people of Taiwan think about this? Not much. Taiwan is critical for the development of China. The last 20 years would not have been possible without the courts and the genius of the Taiwanese, who were the beginning of the development of the factories on the mainland. But the Taiwan election now is at the center of our discussion because there is a challenger. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com and The Daily joins me. Gordon, my introduction to the Taiwan election was the double assassination attempt in 2004 when the DPP surprisingly came from behind and defeated the Kuomintang, the longtime party associated with Chiang Kai-shek and the original the original party that transferred from the mainland back in 1948 as Mao overran the mainland. Now, however, the Kuomintang in power is being challenged by the DPP again, but an entirely new candidate. Good evening, Gordon. Who is Ma, and who is challenging him, and what are the issues in the Taiwanese election come January?
Ma Ying-jeou is the president. He won his first term 4 years ago and now running for re-election. He's neck and neck with his challenger, Tsai Ing-wen of the Democratic Progressive Party. The DPP, or the Greens, tend to be more sort of independence-minded, wanting to have Taiwan as Taiwan. Ma Ying-jeou, the president of the Kuomintang, or the Blues, very much believes in unification with China. And this is really something very important because most of the people on the island want independence or the status quo. They want nothing to do with China, which is undemocratic, which is really horrible. And they think themselves as Taiwanese, not Chinese.
Ma gave a speech on the 100th anniversary of the Chinha Revolution, which is the 1911 revolution that gave us Sun Yat-sen, I believe. And it's 100 years later. And in this speech, Ma cleverly is recommending that China embrace democracy. What the heck is he talking about? Wait, is that gobbledygook, or does that make sense to the people of Taiwan? 1 billion people under the boot of the Communist Party are to embrace democracy.
Well, Ma Ying-jeou knows that the Communist Party, which governs and rules the mainland, is not going to become democratic. But for Ma to talk about trying to have closer political relations with Beijing, he needs to make Beijing look more attractive. And so that's why he's talking about democracy, because the people in Taiwan would never want unification with an undemocratic mainland. And so this is really, I think, part of the narrative of unification.
The challenger, the young woman challenger, Tsai Ing-wen, what is her party platform? How does she present herself? Yes, independence, but there has to be another step. Does she believe in continuing the economic development that's been true for 20 years?
Yes, Tsai Ing-wen is very much a moderate. And in her policy, she talks about continuing economic relations with China. She doesn't stress independence. What she's talking about is a number of bread and butter issues, but also she stands for Taiwan instead of Taiwan being part of a greater Chinese nation, because most of the people, as I mentioned, don't view themselves as Chinese.
Ma's presentation, this idea of unification, from the Chinese point of view, they're not looking to unify. They're looking to gobble it up. They're looking to conquer. In fact, the PLA speaks routinely of violence in order to grab back what they claim is theirs. Does Ma answer that threat?
Well, Ma says that he's trying to build up the military in Taiwan, but he really, not only during his term as president, but before, really was wavering. His party really was wavering on buying military equipment from the United States, and they actually prevented his predecessor, Chen Shui-bian, from consummating acquisition of military purchases from the U.S. That was really a problem. And basically what we've got here is Ma now talking about trying to keep Taiwan as Taiwan, but I think that that's campaign rhetoric because he realizes that if he talks about unification too much, people on Taiwan are just not going to vote for him.
Let's read the United States into this. We can talk about the arms sales, but the Obama administration, has it signaled to Ma or to the challenger that it wants one thing or t'other? Do they have a clear understanding of how the United States will stand after January, after the election?
Well, the Obama administration has tried to sway the election towards Ma Ying-jeou, the incumbent president, because they feel that, Ma is not going to ruffle any feathers in Beijing and that this is one thing that they won't have to worry about. So a senior administration official gave an anonymous interview to the Financial Times, basically denigrating Tsai Ing-wen and essentially trying to swing the vote towards Ma. But it seems not to have had a ripple effect at all on the island because it didn't swing the polls at all.
I remember that interview, and at the time, Gordon, you flagged it as a huge mistake. Did the challenger take advantage of it? Has she been talking about an unfair playing field?
Well, she hasn't talked about it, and she hasn't really highlighted it. Basically, I think the people in Taiwan just thought it was irrelevant. The problem with Ma Ying-jeou is that his government has not really been as competent as it made itself out to be, and people there are concerned about all sorts of things that have gone wrong during his 4 years. And so essentially, Tsai Ing-wen is running on bread and butter issues, and she's trying to make the point she's a moderate, she's not going to disrupt relations with Beijing, and that she can govern better. And so far, she seems to be doing very well in the polls right now.
You've made it clear to me that princelings are taking over next year, 2012, the transition to the fifth generation of the Communist Party. And the princelings are led by Xi, is that his name?
Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping. Does he have an opinion? Does he voice his attitude about Taiwan and its independence and its trade?
Well, he hasn't said anything really on this subject. He's let that be said by Hu Jintao, the current leader, who also on Sunday talked about what he called reunification with Taiwan. See, Beijing believes that Taiwan actually is a part of the Communist Party's domain, and so they talk about reunification. But the point is, the Communist Party has never ruled Taiwan.
And so is this an issue for the new leadership? Will they want to make this one of the jewels in their crown when they take over? They
certainly do. Hu Jintao's predecessor, Jiang Zemin, made this a central point of his foreign policy, and it didn't work because Taiwan remained independent. Hu Jintao has also not succeeded in this. And Xi Jinping, if he ever becomes General Party Secretary in Beijing, won't succeed either.
It's a small state, 23 million, right, Gordon? 23
million.
23 million people off the coast of the mainland. It is, however, a long democracy, a long capitalist state, a long place where freedom rings. And the United States has been in alliance with it since the partition, since the fall of China in 1948. That is not clear today with the Obama administration. There have been some unhappy words. In any event, the elections in January 2012, not all presidential contests are in the United States to determine the fate of the United States in the 21st century. Taiwan stands, we'll be okay. Taiwan falls, trouble. I'm John Batchelor.